we're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns.
Prime Minister Trudeau, just a little earlier this afternoon on the new handgun legislation that he is introducing. We've been waiting a long time for this. Tom Mulcair is standing by. Tom, give me your take on what you did here. Enough or less than expected?
It's going to be very popular in the big cities. You've got to do something about handguns. It's a level of criminal activity that we've never seen before using handguns, and he is going to be very warmly received with this proposal across the country in places like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, and other big cities.
I'm trying to understand exactly what it does do, by the way. Do we have enough? I know this is still ongoing right now, but from what you understand, what does this do?
Okay, so I have a good friend who's a sports shooter. He owns 2 handguns. He goes to a firing range regularly and uses them. He's still going to be allowed to own his handguns, but he would never be able to give them to somebody or sell them to somebody or transfer them. He has to remain the owner, and then after that, that's it. And nobody else who wanted to be a sports shooter with him will be able to buy a handgun. And I think that there's no reason to own a handgun. We can have all sorts of debates and discussions about long guns, about rifles, because in Canada, there's a strong tradition of hunting, and people who have farms have, critters to get rid of. I mean, yes, they have to be able to keep things under control around their farm property. That's fine. This has always been part of the country. And you have to come up with rules there again. So they're saying maximum 5 rounds in the magazine. So that's concentrating on the obvious thing. You don't want to have somebody with the capacity to fire dozens of rounds, as we've seen in the United States. So that's all you can do. They seem to be avoiding, we're going to look at the details overnight, but they seem to be avoiding the trap of going after the cosmetic aspect of something that would be supposedly, that looks like an assault rifle, because really all that matters is what the thing can do. And a high-powered hunting rifle with 5 rounds is every bit as dangerous as a mock AK-47 with 5 rounds in it. So I think they've avoided that trap. But the handgun thing, honestly, I think it's going to be super popular. People are very worried right now about the gun violence in the big cities, and this is a way to address it.
So as you know, I'm completely anti-gun, but I'd like you to respond to the first text that came in as soon as the announcement was made in the news. But basically that the rules are too tough now, Tom, and that they've created a new black market for guns. What do you say to that?
Well, the black market's already there, right? Because the people who are shooting these things in parks and the like, they don't have a license, and they didn't buy them legally. So toughening the sentences, makes a lot of sense. I think that this is the right approach.
Okay, let's move on from that and talk about something else. That's the CAC convention from over the weekend. I don't want to dwell on this. I just want to get your take on 2 things. Number one, this idea, this ethnic nationalism of pushing pride as the big platform for the CAC. A, do you think it's a good idea, or is this kind of short-sighted? And number 2, this idea of wanting to control immigration. And my question here is, Tom, even if, and I think Francois Legault said he wants, a majority of Quebecers to rally around this so he can get those powers from the federal government. What difference does it make how many Quebecers would be on board with this or not? What are the feds likely to give up?
Well, first of all, I love your point about ethnic nationalism, because that's exactly what this is. And your second point, what does this change? What does it mean that you're saying, most Quebecers agree with this? This is the sledgehammer argument that Legault always brings out. Bill 21, 70% of Quebecers agree with me. I've never seen any evidence of that, by the way. And the other thing is, too, what does it change? I mean, if it's illegal and unconstitutional, it doesn't matter how many people agree with it. As Julius Gray is quoted again in the papers today, saying, look, that's why you have a Charter of Rights, to be able to say things that are unpopular and to be able to wear religious symbols, for example, that might not be the same thing that most Quebecers do. But that's why you have to protect minority rights. That is obviously something that Francois Legault has never quite understood. I go back to something that Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois said about Francois Legault a couple of months back. He said he was very much like Duplessis. And that Duplessis era in Quebec politics is often referred to in French as la grande noirceur, the great darkness. And frankly, that's where we are right now. This is Francois Legault. This is a throwback to the Duplessis era. Remember when Duplessis, for example, removed the restaurant license of a man named Frank Roncarelli because he had been paying to defend the court cases when Jehovah's Witnesses, who were subject to the infamous padlock law of Duplessis, he would defend those minority religious members of that minority religion. And that was in the 1950s. And we're right back to that. This is Francois Legault's way of saying, if you're a good Quebecer, you like me. You don't wear religious symbols. I'm going to he wants to be the person to decide who gets to immigrate to Quebec, not Ottawa, because Ottawa keeps letting families unify. You let other families in, other members in from the same family. Well, all of a sudden, you're going to have a bunch of people that you don't want. He wants francophones. And if these family members happen to be anglophones, he doesn't want them. And this is what he's communicating. And it is ethnic nationalism. And it is very disturbing. And it is a throwback to the 1950s. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people right now identifying this and spotting the problem. Although Francine Pelletier did a pretty good job with a pretty convincing bit of work that she did in a documentary that was played on CBC over the weekend.
Oh, I'll have to look that up. I love Francine Pelletier's work. I want to ask you, we got a text saying, forget Quebec pride, I need groceries and gas. And that's precisely what the opposition needs to seize upon here. Will they?
Well, all four parties. I mean, that's the thing. This is where Francois Legault gets to walk to the finish line on October 3rd. The same way on Thursday, you're going to see Doug Ford reelected in Ontario.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you've got that sort of division in the opposition, all you need is 38, 40%. Legault's over 40% right now. And if that holds, and I'm not sure it will, if that holds, then he'll just traipse to the finish line. He'll win in a rump. Why I don't think it'll hold? Because there will be pocketbook issues coming up. And Legault can talk pride until the cows come home. But if gas remains well over $2 a liter, and a bag of groceries costs you $90, and as people who are on fixed income, think seniors, people with pensions that don't vary with the cost of living. Look, it's just an incredible increase. The inflation right now is very real, and politicians that understand these pocketbook issues are the ones that are going to be attracting votes. Eric Duhem, very interesting. He's on the air today saying that he doesn't like Legault's approach on Bill 96. But he's sort of short on specifics as to exactly what he do. I've heard him talk about and talk around Bill 21 and Bill 96. He knows how to give people the impression that he's saying one thing. But the only party that I know that came out four square against Bill 21 and against Bill 96 is the Liberal Party. Mm-hmm. And I have not heard anything clear from Duhem on this. Of course, the Parti Québécois is also against Bill 96 because they don't find it strong enough against the English language, but that's not quite the same kettle of fish, is it?
Yeah, I will tell you that I re-listened to that Eric Duhem interview from Elias this morning, and Eric Duhem did come out and basically say he was not against Bill 21 and made the point about, other countries and what they do. But for the first time, and I'd not heard that before, I was under the impression he wasn't on board. But if you listen to that again, I'm going to play part of that clip. He is in favor of Bill 21. So
he's masterful at giving the impression.
Yeah, that's a very, very good way to put it, yeah. But when you delve into the details, get into the weeds, you begin to understand what's really going on.
No, because he doesn't want to get caught on the French side saying he's against Bill 21. But he wants to survive an interview on CJD, being able to give the impression that he's telling people what he knows they want to hear.
Look, I want to get to one last thing. Don't want to ignore this detailed report by Louise Arbour today on sexual harassment and misconduct in the Canadian military. We've been waiting for this for the longest time. She's pretty critical of what's been going on.
And let's talk a little bit about Louise Arbour. I mean, she's a Montrealer, but she was one of the first Francophone judges to make it to the highest level of the Ontario Court of Appeal and then on to the Supreme Court. Highly respected work internationally. She is just the Rock of Gibraltar as a jurist and as a person with deep experience. And she just looked at this. This is the umpteenth report, of course, on sexual misconduct in the military. And I think it is time to move on. But it is good that it's being capped with such a good, strong, credible report by Louise. And now the government's just got to act on it. And the problem is this is sapping morale. Now, I'm not trying to say that the victims are wrong. They are completely right, and they have to be listened to, and action has to be taken. But at some point, we're going to have to realize that this has hurt not only Canada's image, but the image of everybody who's in the military who right now doesn't feel good about themselves going to work during the day. Mm-hmm. That the vast majority of them, have never done anything wrong in this department. But the few bad apples have just continued to pummel the pride, speaking of that, and the self-image of people who are in Canada's otherwise very respected armed forces. So, yes, let's get that change of culture. Yes, let's have somebody running the shop who actually believes this from now on, and let's continue to recruit great people who can continue to defend our country.
Yeah, and one of the keys here, Tom, I don't know if you agree, this idea that for future sexual misconduct allegations, the last people who should be investigating them are the people in the military.
Look, they're going to have to figure that one out. I mean, some of those cases are being turned over to the civilian courts now. There was always a separate system for justice in the military, the judge advocate general system that we have. I think that they're going to have to think that through. There's one incredible expert on that. His name is Gilles Letourneau. He was a really serious and respected judge on the Federal Court of Appeal, somebody who's worked on this for many years. I think that if you put the best people around the table, you're going to be able to come up with a system that's credible. But it's certain, if you look at what happened in the recent cases, when the top military people would just call down to the military police and start basically saying, hey, I'm your boss, here's what the result of your very objective investigation is going to be. Obviously, the public's not going to be putting up with that anymore.
All right. Tom, thank you. We'll appreciate it. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Great to talk to you. All the best.